and welcome to Watershed Moments, where it's your time and it's your moment. I'm your host, City of Annapolis Ward 3 Alderwoman, Rhonda Pendell Charles. With us today on Watershed Moments, we are excited, pleased, and thrilled to have Dr. Classie Gillis Hoyle, who is my predecessor and who was our Ward 3 Alderwoman prior to my tenure here. And Classie, we are so glad to have you on this program today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here too, and I'm honored.
Wonderful. And you're my first guest. And that was a no-brainer. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll start off with, this is a human interest story. And we were looking to see how folks got to where they are, what watershed moments they faced, what decisions and pivotal moments they had in their lives, some background. And it's a biography of basically this is your life.
Well, great.
Wonderful. And we know you have a lot to talk about, Classie. And we'll start from the beginning.
All right. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
And my understanding is, and you can take me back as far as you like, you're from Annapolis. And tell me a little bit about your family history.
All right. Yes. I was born in Annapolis and got here because two persons wanted to get married. And let me tell you this is funny, I really like to say. Both of my parents are from a little small town in North Carolina, Roxborough, North Carolina. And believe it or not, they are children of first cousins. Now, you have two, quote, second cousins who are interested in each other, but both families don't want them, to get together. So my dad's mom sent him to Annapolis. He had a brother, older brother here, living here, to work at the Naval Academy to break up this, relationship. And my mother's mother sent her to West Virginia to go to school. So after a short while, they eloped and got married and came to Annapolis. So that's how they got started in Annapolis.
Oh, right.
But unfortunately, it wasn't, what we say, happily married, the story happily ever after. Because in 3 years, there were 3 babies, 3-year-old Classie, 2-year-old Ophelia, and 9-month-old James, when my dad had ruptured appendix. And in Annapolis, there were no places for blacks to go, no medical facilities. And he ended up with pneumonia and premature death.
How old was he?
He was like 25. Well, my mom was 25. Now, can you imagine a 25-year-old woman with a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and 9-month-old?
Oh, my.
So that was this, true love story, how it ended. And then we left had to leave Annapolis. My mom felt support from her family, so we moved to Baltimore. So I had that span. And while we were in Baltimore, my mom, we were poor. How else, unless your spouse leaves you a couple of million, with a 25-year-old. And it was during the war, and my mom worked 2 jobs, clothing factory and restaurant in the evenings. Her brother lived across the street from our apartment, who was supposed to be kind of looking after us. But my sister and I were really taking care of ourselves. My mom left for work a little bit before we left for school, and we got our breakfast and we would leave going to school. I can remember sometimes we would run out of milk or cereal, and we could go to the neighborhood grocery store and get milk and get cereal and sometimes sandwich food.
Now, what part of Baltimore was this?
It was in East Baltimore, on Bond Street, near now where they have the Wax Museum.
Oh, yes.
In that area. And so, but back then, you know, you weren't concerned so much about children being hurt as kids are now, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know. But anyway, we could have meals at the restaurant. So, you know, we were eating out every night. Didn't
What a
realize,
treat.
Yes. So anyway, that's how it started in Baltimore. Now, by this time, my mother's mother had convinced her to let her do everything but adopt the 9-month-old, you know. So we talk about a village to raise, you know, children.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what happened. So she had my brother, and my father's mother wanted so much to have us down in Annapolis. So for 2 years, we came to Annapolis. And that, I think I was 4th grade by then, so the 4th and 5th grade, and we attended the school, you know, parole, the Rosenwald School, yeah. So for 2 years, we actually went there, my sister and I. But every time my mom would come to visit, you know, it would be the crying, oh, I want my kids, you know, and so we went back. So technically, I was raised in Baltimore, and we went through the school system there, and East Baltimore Junior High School was Dunbar.
Oh, yes.
And my mom, after 14 years, remarried. We didn't like it, my sister and I, because it was a new person entering this close relationship. But we moved to West Baltimore, and then I went to Douglas High. And when I graduated from high school, that was the Supreme Court made the decision separate but equal schools were unconstitutional. So what happened? They moved the kids out of the school where we had been, to where Douglas High School is now on Glens Falls Parkway, you know, and moved out the all-girls school, you know, the white girls' school downtown, until they built Western.
Oh, okay.
So that's how Western got built. But by then, integration was gradually taking place. And so when I graduated from an all segregated school.
Now, that was Western?
No, I never went to Western. Douglas. I graduated from Douglas. So that's, you know, that was my beginning in Baltimore. And I remember being in school, some of the hardships in school. You know, we got and people don't know this now, we got all the used textbooks. You know, you read in the book, read about these things happening, but you don't really know how it happened. So we'd get all these boxes of books that were marked, that were scratched and everything, and we, the students, would scramble and get the best ones we could, you know, to have books, to have textbooks.
To learn.
To learn.
Right.
To learn.
Exactly. And it was a great learning experience.
It was a tremendous learning experience because people cared, you know, and that was the great thing.
Wonderful.
They cared.
So now we've graduated from high school, and what next?
You know, if I can step back just for a moment, when I was in the 9th grade, I can remember, and this was when we first went to Douglas, I can remember a parent, this father of one of my classmates, coming to visit, and they refer to him as Dr. Spalding, and I'm thinking, I was so proud of this man, you know, and everybody, whenever he came, all the excitement and everything. And I said, well, who is he? And they said, it's not a medical doctor, he has a PhD. I said, I want a PhD. I will get a PhD.
He made an impression on you.
Yes. I said, that's what I want.
That was your one of your watershed moments.
That's right, that's right. And so, you know, that stayed in the back of my mind, you know. And as we went through, I was in high school, I was in everything.
Tell me what you were in. Tell me what you weren't in.
Basketball, volleyball, safety patrol, you name it.
What weren't you in? You weren't on the football team.
No.
Okay.
I can remember you know, at the end of the year, you take all these pictures. And one of my counselors says, "Aren't you tired of taking pictures?" Well, that was a little bit insulting because I'd been doing all this stuff. So yeah, I was practically in every page, in every book, in every picture. But, you know, that was good. The 2 years that I was a student in Annapolis in elementary school, I would come back also during the summer, you know, and visit. And so there are many childhood things, watershed moments that I remember. I can remember walking in the cold from what is now Forest Drive. I think it was called something else, no pavement, walking to the school, cold, cold, cold. I can remember during the summer, some of the, I remember the Snowden family who lived down the street, you know. Now, as we talk about it, we talk about Emma and all of these people, you know.
Yes.
I remember the Queen family,
Yes.
you know. I remember the Murden family.
Yes. Another doctor.
Yes, right. And what I do, very often pull out these pictures, you know, and see us at prom pictures or dance pictures or in Baltimore, looking at at the theater, you know, going to the theater. So, you know, you think you're poor, but just your surroundings and the people you hang with and everything makes you rich.
Absolutely.
You know,
You couldn't have said it better.
That's right.
Right.
So, for that reason, you know, I'm blessed, you know, and all the things that have happened, and so much has happened since high school, since those days, but it was because of the richness of family and community, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, you had a very eclectic childhood.
Yes.
You did a lot
Yeah.
of wonderful things that catapulted you into being the person that you are today. And being involved in a lot of activities as a child is really it can't be beat.
That's right. That
It
is
gives you a
absolutely right.
well-rounded perspective. You're able to mingle with all types of people. But sounds like Dr. Spalding really made a great impression on
Yes.
you.
Right,
Who else at Douglas do you recall?
I can, of course, remember some of the teachers,
Yes.
you know, and some of the high school teachers. One of them lived up the street. Once we got married and moved in our neighborhood, this woman that I'd seen in school all the time, I said, "Hey, she's one of my neighbors," you know. So it's a lot of that.
Truly
that
a
goes
neighborhood
on.
situation where you can see the persons that you're looking up to right there in your community. And that's
Absolutely.
extraordinarily important when you can actually see those persons
That's
and can
right.
relate to them in a way that if they live somewhere else, you really don't have that great relationship.
That's right.
But what a colorful experience from state to state and city
Yes,
to city, and your summers here, and absolutely, that sounds fascinating. Well, we're going to take a break right here, and we're going to move on to college when we come back. Thank you so much, Classie, and we'll move on
Very
after the
good.
break. We're back with Dr. Classie Gillis Hoyle, former alderwoman in Ward 3, and we're going to pick up on after high school, then comes college.
Right. You know, when I wanted very much to go away to school, and I had gotten this scholarship to Greensboro to 350, you know. Well, college, $350 can't get you in the door. And my mom said, well, you just can't go. We can't afford it. And I said, if I can't go there, I'm not going anyplace. I ended up at Morgan and had a beautiful time.
Absolutely.
You know,
So did I.
Yes. And it was great. I got there for the senatorial scholarship is what, you know, and many of our students need to know that that scholarship is still available. I don't know if you get as much, but it's still available. I worked in Joe's department store. If you're familiar with Baltimore, downtown across from the projects, it was this little tiny convenience store, 50 cents an hour, but it bought my book.
All right.
All right. So I had a senatorial scholarship in this little job, and that's how I got through Morgan as a bachelor's, you know. And
So what was your major?
Science education.
Which involved?
Science education is to teach teachers how to teach science, you know. And it's really just an accumulation of the different elementary sciences, you know, on the bachelor's level. And after teaching for 9 years...
No, let's move back a little bit. Any professors that you can think of that were really instrumental in your education at Morgan?
Oh, yes. Dr. Frazier in science ed, he was the head of the department. He was number one. He was my advisor. He was great. There were, oh gee, I have the worst time remembering names.
That's all
you can
right.
remember faces beautifully, you know. But I'll never forget Dr. Frazier, who had twins, and he used to always talk about his twins, and every time one would do something, the other one would do it.
He was there when I was there.
Yes, right. But moving on, after at Morgan for 4 years, I decided that I wanted the master's, you know. And again, being in science education and all, there were funds available to get minority students into the sciences. So I got a fellowship from the National Science Foundation, grant. And that took care of my master's degree.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So,
good grades, of course,
Yeah.
helped out tremendously,
Yes,
making all the relationships and the connections,
That's
making
right.
yourself known, and people knew what you were doing. So that helps tremendously in acquiring
does.
these funds.
That's right. And you have to follow through. You know they are there. You have to follow through. If you don't know, you go to someone who does.
Absolutely.
To help you get there. And so it was Dr. Frazier, you know, who said, these are the funds, you have to apply for them, you know, and I'm following through. There were others in the physics, in the biology, you know, but basically it was science education. And after I got the master's, I decided I wanted to teach at Morgan, you know. So that's what I did. I applied to teach. I had been in the public schools for 9 years, and I wanted something different. Started teaching at Morgan for science education. And then whenever they needed someone to teach the beginning physics, I was there, was like substituting, you know, or biology, I was there. And
So
and
you
I
taught
said-
9 years in the city public schools?
in the city public
Okay,
schools.
what grades?
Junior high.
Oh, junior high, okay.
Yeah,
all
7th,
right.
8th, and 9th.
Okay.
You know, at that time, it wasn't middle school.
Right,
It was junior high.
Right,
So that's what I taught, basically.
okay.
And wanted to teach high school, but the system didn't want me to go where I wanted to go, you know. So I said, well, okay, Morgan wants me, I'll go to Morgan. And there, I taught there for 4 years. Back to that PhD. I needed a PhD to move ahead, you know. Here I am at Morgan with Dr. Spalding, who's teaching chemistry there.
Wow.
And so I wanted a PhD. Where do you get a PhD? At the time, there were only 2 programs in science education, the PhD program. University of Colorado or University of Iowa. And my husband decided, well, hey, let's just take a weekend, 4th of July weekend, and let's go to both of these places. So with the 2 kids, by this time I got 2 kids,
Okay.
they're in the car, and we were going, checking these schools out. So that's how I got to Iowa.
Now, where were you living while you were teaching at in the middle school and the junior high school as well as Morgan?
Okay, teaching, living in Govins area.
Oh, yes.
On Ivanhoe
Waverly.
Avenue.
Yes, okay.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's where I was. I could even walk to Morgan. One time, the snow was so bad one year, we had snow, and I got out to try to walk from my house and couldn't get halfway. We couldn't, I don't know what year, that was one of those historic snowfalls. But yes, that's where I lived. And I just taught at 3 different schools, you know, for high school science. But my payment, the money that I could use to get the PhD came from a grant, another grant.
Wow.
Sputnik, you know, the Sputnik aid.
Oh, yes.
I got full complete scholarship.
Wow. This is great information for today's STEM students.
Yes,
Because that's
yes.
huge now, and trying to get women in that field as well. And you seem to be hitting all the right targets.
Yes, well, that's-
when you went through the process.
And I got a Sputnik grant, which paid my salary that I was getting at Morgan, full salary. So then I could go and didn't have to, most people when they start in graduate school, you know, they do graduate internships. But I had money, so I didn't have to do that.
Wow.
But my major professor wanted me, he wanted me to get that experience. That's so important for students, to get involved, you know, to get involved. So my PhD was scheduled on a 3-year track. I made and completed all of my grades. My major professor had to go away, which meant I missed like a month, and I had to wait for a year. But that didn't matter at all.
All
you
right.
know?
You were patient. You understood. Now, you were in Iowa at this point.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, right. So we had moved by this time, left my house intact, was going to come back in 3 years. My kids were just enjoying it. My son was playing football, had all of these football associations and colleagues and friends, and begged me, please don't leave until after I graduate. He's 4 years difference in my daughter. So when we stayed for him, then my daughter, well, I don't want to leave either. So we went to Iowa to stay 3 years and end up staying 17.
Wow.
Isn't that
What a
something?
change in course.
Yes.
Another change in
Changing-
course.
That's right.
Yes, so you had to make the sacrifice for your family,
That's right.
delay a bit your own aspirations, but isn't it well worth it?
Yes, yes. And the experience that I picked up, the association, the friendships, and everything just made me a, you know, better person, better family person, better community person, and better council person.
All that leads up to the direction in which you go. And it's so very, very important. And your children are very appreciative of what you did and understand why you do what you do. Now tell us something about Iowa in those 17 years. Wow.
Well, I was really into the education part, the studying, so I didn't do anything. But after that, my president of the college, said to me, we have something for you to do. I didn't know what that meant, but we were going shaking hands, and I guess he had to say something to me as I went across that stage, you see. So, but anyway, I held many jobs when I was in Iowa. I started out in what they call a program where you train, you get your students, you recruit students, and you get them to do, we call it job job training, but that wasn't the name of it. But anyway, I was in charge of this women engineers.
Wow.
So to make sure that when they came to Iowa, they got into a program, they were well situated, and I went after minority students because they aren't in engineering.
Now, were there quite a few or very few minority students in Iowa?
Very few.
So you concentrated on a small amount of students, which was in some ways very good because they got your undivided attention.
Right. And these were students who came basically from Chicago or other, being recruited. They weren't students that grew up in Iowa.
Oh, okay.
These were recruits. And so we had a program called Women Engineers. And, I have relationships, I have friendships that have grown through the years from working with students in that engineering program. And to see them grow and, making six-figure salaries, because they were part of a program where they would not have been had we not gotten them involved and helped them along the way.
A movement, literally. Now, how far from Iowa is Chicago, about?
I'm thinking like 4 hours. Okay. When we would go, I'm thinking like 4 hours.
And that would be the biggest pool that they could draw from.
Yes, right there.
Wow.
Yeah,
great.
But it was great, to get students graduating, men and women. But I worked mostly with women engineers. But it was great.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Now, what was your dissertation about?
I believe, and I still do, that whenever you get successful people together and you bring people into the group, then they want to do what the successful people do. And they actually do. If you wanted to be successful and you are not, and you have a group of people who are doing what you want to do, then you put them in there and they begin to imitate, and then that's where you get the change behavior.
Wow.
And I'm sure that was the same way with me with the PhD situation. It was something I wanted. What did I have to do to get the PhD? I had to be around people with PhDs. Wow. I had to know what it meant and what I had to do. And because that was something I wanted, I had to imitate. And I say that to students all the time. Surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. If you want to play basketball, you're not going to go with the rappers. You're going to hang out with the basketball players.
Simple concept, but very deep thinking.
Yes, right. And you have to, that's where we are.
That's wonderful. Yes. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
A lot of sense. I think sometimes young people and even not so young people miss that concept that you should surround yourself with the people that are about what you're about. That's or what you need to be about. And go seek them out and find out what their success story is all about. Right. So that's wonderful. I mean, to work with those female engineers has to be something that you really felt like not only is a watershed moment in their lives, but is your lives as well. And it's good and it feels good to be able to say, I'm responsible for what these folks have accomplished. Had you all ever thought about possibly a reunion? Or?
Yes, we have, you know, and they come here whenever I have about 4 or 5 who come, and they are all over the place now. Every time I had an inauguration, 2 or 3 of those students were there.
Wonderful.
You know, which makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. And I might say with my dissertation, I used a population of students, population here in the Baltimore City school system.
Oh.
And those were the students, you know, the Board of Education allowed me to use the, you know, the population for.
Wonderful. Something you're familiar with.
Yes. Right. So it was great.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be taking a break right now, but we'll come back with Dr. Classie Gillis Hoyle in a moment. Well, we're back with Dr. Classie Gillis Hoyle, and we're still in Iowa. Tell us a little bit more about Iowa, Classie.
Well, Iowa City is where I was. University of Iowa is in Iowa City, and you have Iowa State in Des Moines, Iowa, which is the capital. But you have snow. It begins to snow in October, and you don't see the ground until March.
Tell us more now that we've had a little bit of snow here. But
oh
yes.
man, but you get used to it. You know, and you expect it, and it isn't that bad. But my daughter got so tired of it when she graduated. She went to University of Iowa too, and when she graduated, she packed up and went to Hawaii. So that just goes to show you.
What an extreme.
Yes, right. But the living there was very nice. There, was a situation where I was really involved because there weren't many of us, and because we need to show more diversity in in most of these colleges. I was blessed to get a lot of opportunities.
Wonderful, yes.
And one of the things I did, I had many, many jobs. I was director of affirmative action, and that made me aware of that whole business of older woman and older man, because I got to the point where I couldn't say I was a man, older man, because I dealt 5 years in that environment. Right. I was also part of what we call the National Identification Program. That's a national program. Its headquarters in D.C., but every state has a leader. And that program helped to identify women who wanted to be presidents of colleges.
Oh, right.
And so we had meetings within our state, or the leaders had to come to Washington. I had the opportunity of being interviewing for a number of colleges for president. I was vice president for academic affairs at Clark College, which is in Dubuque, Iowa, not the Clark College in Atlanta. And it grew out of my relationship with that program, and all of that started in Iowa. When I was on the short list for Morgan.
Oh, wow.
As Dr. Frazier, that I said was my...
Coming right back to Dr. Frazier.
Yeah. He nominated me, and, I got there. I realized how political that was, so I just stepped back. It was clear who the person was, and so I didn't want to get in that political situation. But that's one experience in Iowa that I will carry with me. I knew Dr. Smith at Anne Arundel Community College because she was part of that group, Martha Smith. So, as we grow, as we get involved, and as I tell students, surround yourself with people who can help you do what you want to do. I wanted to be, that was the goal, wanted to be a president of a college. I didn't get there, but I surrounded myself with people who were there and had opportunities.
Well, you certainly maximized your experiences.
I tried, and that's something I do. You ask, what is it you like to do? I like to help people look at things that's going to help them.
And you pass that on to others, which is so important.
Yes, and I try.
Now we're going to move back east.
Okay.
To this area of Maryland, and you came back after your 17 years in Iowa?
Yes.
What next?
Now, you know how I got back? It was interesting. Sitting on the airplane next to a young man who needed someone at NIH to do a program.
National Institutes of Health in
Bethesda. In Bethesda. And he asked me, I said, well, one day I want to move back to Maryland because that's my home state, but right now. He said, well, why don't you come and interview for this position?
You met him on the plane.
I met him on the plane.
Folks out there, you never know who you're going to meet on the plane.
We sat next to each other, and And I did. I went to Bethesda. I interviewed for the position, and it was the best job I've ever had in my life.
Wow. What was the position again?
The position was with NIH, with the with the General Medical Science program. But the program was to get students who were going to school to be medical doctors, to get them into PhD programs.
Wow.
So they want this was a grant-funded program in which medical doctors, minority medical doctors, to study for PhDs.
Wow.
And that was the best job. I, for the first time, got to travel to all the historically black colleges. I had never been to all the other than Morgan. I had never been to a historically black college. All down in the South. Got to go to California because a number of the immigrant, population wanted to get. But here again, students who were interested in moving ahead, doing something special, I had a chance to interact with them.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So it was just great. So that's how I got back to Maryland. I had this program. University of Iowa gave me a leave of absence. So I came here for 2 years. And then my husband retired. He said, "We're back, let's stay."
Oh.
So I never got back to Iowa. I never got back to Iowa.
You never know who you're going to run into.
That's right.
You never know when you're being interviewed, and you don't even know you're being interviewed.
That's right.
He was very impressed in
Apparently.
a very unsociable situation.
Yes, right.
And you
right.
just never know which
never
way
know.
things are going to turn. What a great story.
Yeah. So I came there, and then after that program, I quit the program. That commute from Bethesda to Annapolis, we came back in the homestead, the home house, and fixed the house up, and everything, and moved back. But I said, that's the best job I've ever had in my life,
Wow.
And then, though, after that, I went to the Maryland Higher Ed Commission.
And that's located?
That's here in Annapolis.
On Bestgate Road?
I don't know where it is now, and it probably is. It used to be on Francis Street.
Oh, yes, it was. Absolutely. Yes, it was.
Right. So
what did you do there?
I was a deputy director for finance. Can you believe?
Wow.
Can you believe finance?
Wow.
After being in academic affairs, but everything else, all of my
career. But it helped when you got on the council.
It
but
helped.
We'll get to that.
Yes, I was there for a short while. But anyway, that was how I got back to Annapolis, got back to Maryland, and one of my retirements, was time to retire and look at some other things.
All right. Now, what was your husband doing during all this time period?
He is, as a person who supports, a lot of time he didn't agree, but he never interfered. He allowed that. And I've heard a number of people saying, but my husband won't let me do it. We moved, he selected the place, he selected the house, made some good decisions. When it was retirement time, he came back, and helped get the house ready while I was on the road commuting to Bethesda back and forth. So, yes.
Now, where is he from?
He is from North Carolina, but I met him in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
What a very supportive gentleman.
Yes, he has been. He really has.
That is wonderful.
And everything, yes, he's been supportive.
That's extraordinarily helpful. When you're on a mission and on a passion, to have that support system is vital. It is really vital. And then to have children as well.
Right.
And you really want to maximize what you can do in all areas. And oftentimes for us women, that can be a challenge.
Right.
And we need that support system to carry us through, and that's vital. It is so vital in our own lives, and I think we all learn from each other. The spouses learn from each other, and the children learn and watch, and it helps them along the way as well. But yes.
And in August we'll celebrate our 60th wedding anniversary.
Great.
Isn't that something?
Congratulations ahead of time. But
Yeah.
that is great. That is a testimony to your marriage.
Yes,
and that's
right.
important as well. And so we congratulate you both
Yes.
on that milestone and that
Yeah,
watershed
watershed.
moment as well.
That's right.
But
and
anything.
of course.
If there was something now up to this point that you could do differently or you wouldn't have done, maybe have taken a little more time for, is there anything, or you feel like things have gone as much as planned?
You know what, I don't know. When people ask me that, I don't know what I would change. My husband asks me a lot too, what would you change? And I really can't think of anything that I would positively change. Sometimes I say, well, maybe I would have gotten married to somebody else. But, I really don't, other than that job, that I let go at the NIH,
Right.
I think I would have kept that a lot longer. But things have worked out.
Oh,
Been good.
Good.
Yeah.
So now you're back in Annapolis, and you've had to make some other decisions. What were they?
Well, we did a lot of things. I started an assisted living, after my parents were getting old and needing help. I said, why don't I do that? But they left me before I was able to get it. But I did have an assisted living. And then my husband had a stroke, diabetic, and we didn't, I decided not to keep that. It was too much of a strain, so I just closed it up. But I'm able now to help a lot of people who want to go that direction. Your city planning and zoning send them to me, and I just tell them all the things that we did, and it helps them.
Wonderful.
And that's one of the things I like about myself, and I don't know how I got there. But when people come to me and ask, can you help me do something? Sometimes I don't have the slightest idea. But after we sit and talk, it's like the light bulb goes on.
The light bulb goes off. Absolutely.
And then you're able to help them.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So that's one of the good things that I like to do. I'm happy doing.
And you made a decision to go into politics.
And yes, again, helping people. I said, why can't we get the help that we need, And I enjoyed doing that.
And we'll stop right there.
All right.
All right.
And we'll talk about
and we'll
that
talk
later.
about that when we take a break. Thank you so much. And we're back with Dr. Classie Gillis Hoyle, and she's going to tell us the impetus in getting into politics.
All right. It has to be something you enjoy, because people talk about politicians awful, don't they? They give us all kinds of titles.
I've heard that.
Yes. But when I came back to Annapolis, and I began to ask questions and seeing things done differently than the way I would do them, I asked many of my neighbors, and they said, we need someone to run for this office. And they kept on, and so I decided, well, I'll run. Well, we had a very hard-working man in the seat, and he had been there for, well, total 20 years. And had apparently done a fantastic job, because you don't stay in anything 20 years if you're messing up, you know. So apparently he had done a lot of good. But it was time, we all recognized it was time for him to move aside. You've got to know when to get out.
And Mr. Samuel Gilmer was a gentleman who stayed the course.
Yes,
yes,
right. And so I began talking a lot to him. And what I was getting was, oh, we just do that. Oh, it's nothing. You know, I said no. And the thing I think that broke the camel's back, I would see the wagon, the street sweeper in everybody's neighborhood sweeping the street. I would see the leaf collection truck collecting leaves in neighborhoods, piling the leaves up, and the trucks coming in, the vacuum trucks. Mm-hmm. So I asked Mr. Gilmer, why don't we have it? He said, oh, we just bag our leaves. I said, but no, we got to buy the bags, get somebody to help us rake them when we can have the truck. Oh, you know, so he just played too much off. And I said, I've got to run.
Everybody's personality is different.
You're right. And, you know, I'm so sure of myself, and not knowing anything about running, I lost very badly the first time. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there was another young woman who ran on the ticket too. And I said, if you hadn't been on there, you know, maybe I would have won. When I added her totals and my totals, we still lost, mm-hmm. you know. So I got it together, and the next time around, I won as big as I had lost the time before. But so I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being on the council. But after 3 terms or 12 years, you know, you get tired, mm-hmm. and I was tired. Mm-hmm. And everyone said, now don't walk away. Get someone, talk to someone, get someone who can step in and pick up, you know, and do what you think needs to be done. And you know, I had been talking to you so long.
Yes, you had.
A long time.
Yes, you had. But like you, it was a family situation. Mm-hmm. I was commuting to Baltimore, mm-hmm. and you know about commuting.
Yes.
So, and I didn't want to do it unless I was sure that I could follow in the footsteps mm-hmm. of those that had come before me.
Yes.
Yes.
And so, you know, I was delighted when you say yes. And it was a point where, and I have not regretted it. I've had many people to say, don't you wish you were on? No, no. I am so pleased, you know. Yeah. If I want to come and say something, I feel I can. But I am pleased. I've finished the course. and that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, good, mm-hmm. good. And your 3 pieces of legislation that you talk about frequently, that you're so proud of.
The alderwoman.
Yes.
You know, we just, the home
PUD?
Yes.
Affordable housing.
Affordable,
a certain percentage.
Yes. ADP, yes. Affordable housing.
Yes.
And what's the third?
And the sidewalks.
Oh, and
we completed those.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmer
right.
started the course.
Yes.
And you completed the course.
Yes.
And that's
right.
wonderful.
And it's beautiful.
Yes,
you know,
is.
Those sidewalks are beautiful.
Yes, they are. They really are.
And I don't think it's any place in the city that has that level of beauty yes. and structure of
Absolutely.
sidewalks.
It's wonderful. And we thank you for your commitment, your dedication, and your passion for that. I mean, it can be a grueling job. Mm-hmm. You're never off the clock.
Yes.
I'm learning that. I've learned that. But thank you for your service. It's been tremendous. We've had some tremendous leaders in Ward 3, mm-hmm. starting with Mr. T. Norwood Brown mm-hmm. when we annexed in
Absolutely.
51, and then Alderman, then Mayor Chambers, mm-hmm. then Mr. Sammy, and then you, and now me. But some big shoes to fill as we go along.
And I am so grateful that you're there, you know.
Well, thank you, because I've come to you and asked you different things when I first decided to run, to get your input, and you were so gracious in providing me all the knowledge that you have. Mm-hmm. But it's so funny, I think about all 5 of us are totally different.
Everyone is different.
Yes.
We
Yes.
moved in a different direction,
Yes.
for getting things done.
Yeah, but we've got them done. Yes, we
That's
have.
right.
Now, we've
And
talked about Classie, the workhorse. Now, let's talk about Classie and what she likes to do in her spare time.
I used to love to sew, but because I was so tired, I'm just enjoying just relaxing, doing games on the computer, nothing academic, nothing to think about, just enjoying it. I'm in a lot of organizations, volunteer, with a tribute to women of color,
Right.
with grants, with my Delta. I'm, very into that and helping with getting scholarships. I'm with the Community Life Center,
Absolutely.
doing things to keep our community, hopefully. So I'm volunteering on the election committee, thanks to you, for the city of Annapolis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have a lot to provide and give to us on that subject. Yes.
So I'm just volunteering and enjoying life, and I want to get back into traveling. We have done a lot of traveling. I was thinking, I said, I think I have been to every state in the Union except Alaska.
Wow.
But in addition, I've been to Spain, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Japan, I've been to Germany.
Wow.
Different things get me there. My niece working for NIH, working for the government, got me to Germany. My friend who's a coach, basketball coach, got me to Japan. It's different things. I went to the Olympics for Greece,
Wow.
So I'm going to get back into going once I've relaxed and downsized and,
Right, because you told me you wanted to just sit and read your newspaper.
That's right.
I remember that.
Yes, I really would. That's all I want to do.
Now, what was your favorite? I mean, those are 49 states and several other countries. What struck you as the most enjoyable experience that you had traveling?
I think, and again, everyone is different. I think South Africa.
Okay.
I think I enjoyed that best.
Oh, good, good. But anyway, Classie, we're going to wrap up a little bit. Your philosophy on life, wisdom you want to pass on to the listening audience.
Well, with the youth, we just want our youth to surround themselves with good people, keep the faith, and don't give up. Work hard. We have to remember that.
Yes.
Just set your goals and work toward those goals, and don't forget them.
Absolutely. What makes you happy?
I just relaxing and enjoying people. I really just like people.
Oh, that's obvious.
Yes.
And it comes across very well. It really does. I mean, that's very obvious. And we're just so glad to have you here. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your depth, your experiences. I mean, all of us can learn a lot from what you've done in your life. And it's been an eye-opener for me. I knew some of the things, but definitely the intricacies of it all. It's been wonderful. And you have a lot to give and to offer to the rest of us. And I've certainly enjoyed having you here today on my first show. I mean, it's just been marvelous.
Well, thank you so much. I am just delighted, that you chose me.
Oh, it was a no-brainer.
Thank you so much, and I've enjoyed that. And we'll have to continue the conversation at another time.
Absolutely. There's more. There's more. Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Hoyle. We're so grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. And if any of you out there would like to appear on Watershed Moments, then just email me at aldpendelcharles@annapolis.gov, and I'd be happy to have you on the show. That concludes our show for today. And remember, stay the course.